Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep into Ask, and it is given today. It's by Esther and Jerry Hicks.
Oh yeah, classic.
It is, and we're going to be focusing on the introduction in the first few chapters. The book really breaks down this whole concept of the law of attraction and
Hmm.
how to, manifest your desires,
Hmm.
which I think is something that a lot of us are interested in, or at least curious about.
For sure. And it's so interesting how they introduce this concept through Esther's personal story.
Right.
Because initially she was like really skeptical
Yeah.
of anything mystical or spiritual. Like the idea of channeling or talking to spirits kind of freaked her out.
It's almost ironic
Yeah.
when you think about where she ends up. Starting from that place of skepticism, it
That's
makes
right.
you wonder, like, what kind of experience could shift such a, deeply ingrained belief?
Well, that's where it all began with a medium named Sheila.
Okay.
Picture this, right? A beautifully decorated house, this kind of reverence in the air.
Mm.
And suddenly, this distinct voice comes out of Sheila
Whoa.
and introduces itself as Theo.
It sounds like a movie or
I
something.
know, right?
But what's really striking is that despite her initial fear, Esther felt this, overwhelming sense of well-being during that session.
Yeah, it's like a direct experience that totally contradicts her expectations. And it sparks this curiosity in her.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we first hear that powerful statement.
Yeah.
We create our own reality.
Now, that's a big statement.
It is.
So how does she go from, being terrified of the supernatural to embracing this idea, that we create our own reality?
Well, it wasn't an overnight transformation. Remember, Esther was looking for practical guidance
Right.
on how to achieve goals more effectively.
Right.
And Theo, this voice from Sheila, suggested something that at the time wasn't exactly mainstream.
Mm.
Meditation and affirmations.
You have to remember, this was back in the 80s.
Oh,
Meditation wasn't as widely practiced as it is today.
exactly. And her perception of meditation was like so different back then. She pictured it as this austere, uncomfortable thing. She even jokes about people meditating on beds of nails.
It just shows how our preconceived notions can, totally color our understanding of things.
For sure. But Theo's explanation was much simpler. Find a quiet space, focus on your breath, and gently release any distracting thoughts.
Yeah.
Theo also gave Esther and Jerry a specific affirmation to use
Okay.
to attract the right people to their work.
So this affirmation, despite her initial resistance, it ended up having this, profound impact on her. It
Yeah.
sounds like it was a pretty pivotal moment. It's described as this experience of, pure love, so intense, it's, completely washed away her fear.
It was a turning point for sure. It opened the door for Esther to explore meditation even more deeply,
Mm.
and to consider that maybe, just maybe, she was a channel too.
So she went from being afraid of the unknown to potentially being, a conduit for it.
Right. Pretty wild.
What happened next?
So, Esther and Jerry, they committed to daily meditation for 9 months.
Oh, wow.
They felt this detachment during their sessions, but nothing like overtly extraordinary. But then, one day, everything changed. During meditation, Esther's head started moving, like as if she was spelling letters in the air.
That's quite a visual. It sounds almost involuntary.
Like something else was taking over.
So was this, the beginning of her channeling?
It was. With Jerry's help, they received a clear message. I am Abraham. I am your spiritual guide.
Wow.
This is where we meet Abraham, not as a single entity, but as a collective consciousness.
This is the part that always gets me about channeling. It really pushes our understanding of communication.
It really does.
So are you saying Abraham communicates through blocks of thought, almost like radio waves?
Exactly.
And Esther's the receiver, turning them into language we can understand?
Yeah.
I've got to ask, what are your initial thoughts on that whole concept?
Well, it's definitely complex and raises a lot of questions.
Mhm.
But what stand out to me is this emphasis on allowing. You see, initially, Esther's focus on her breath was actually blocking her from receiving these thought blocks from Abraham.
Interesting.
It took a pretty dramatic head movement to break through that.
It makes you wonder, what other possibilities might open up if we just allow ourselves to receive.
Right.
But let's go back to Abraham for a second. They're not claiming to be, a singular being.
No, not at all. They describe themselves as a collective consciousness,
Okay.
a blend of perspectives channeled through Esther.
So it's like this interplay between the non-physical and physical realm.
Exactly.
It's fascinating. And Jerry plays a key role in them, too. It seems like his curiosity and desire to learn was actually what drew Abraham to them in the first place.
It's a good reminder that our intentions and desires can have a ripple effect,
Right.
attracting things into our lives in ways we might not even expect.
Yeah. And one thing I find refreshing about Abraham's messages is the lack of judgment. It's about empowerment and guidance,
Mhm.
not about dictating, what you should or shouldn't desire.
It's about choice.
Yeah. It's about reclaiming that freedom to create our own reality. But before we even get to that,
Yeah.
I feel like there's this underlying message about recognizing who we truly are.
Definitely. The book emphasizes reconnecting with what it calls source energy, this
Yeah.
pure positive energy that flows through all of us.
I see. So it's this connection that empowers us to create a life that really reflects our authentic selves.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this idea of channeling this collective consciousness called Abraham and this concept of source energy.
Right.
But how does all of this connect to the law of attraction? I'm still wrapping my head around how we actually create our own reality. Does the book explain that?
It does. It introduces this idea of vibrational frequency,
Okay.
where our thoughts and emotions are like magnets, attracting similar vibrations back to us.
So if we're constantly focusing on what we don't want, like negativity or lack, are we
Yeah.
actually attracting more of that into our lives?
Right. Exactly. It's not about denying the reality of challenging situations, but it's about recognizing that we have the power to choose our thoughts
Mm.
and in turn shape our experiences. It's like having a garden. If you plant seeds of doubt and fear, you're likely to harvest more of the same. But if you cultivate seeds of hope, joy, and abundance, your garden will flourish in a whole new way.
I love that analogy.
Yeah,
It really emphasizes that we play an active role in creating our reality.
sure.
But how do we actually shift those thoughts, especially when life throws curveballs our way?
Well, that's where the book really dives into this process of deliberate creation. It's about aligning our thoughts, beliefs, and emotions with what we truly desire.
So we're not just passive recipients of life circumstances, but active participants in shaping them.
Exactly.
This is where it starts to get really exciting. It's almost like we're given a set of tools and a blank canvas.
Yeah,
And we have the power to create whatever masterpiece we can envision.
that's a great way to put it. And while it might feel a bit overwhelming at first,
I can see that.
the book provides practical steps and techniques to help us master this process.
Okay.
It encourages us to become more aware of our thoughts,
Mhm.
to let go of those limiting beliefs, and to really cultivate a mindset of abundance and possibility.
So we've laid some groundwork here. We've
Yeah.
talked about channeling collective consciousness, source energy, the law of attraction, and this idea of vibrational frequency.
We've covered a lot.
It's a lot to absorb, but it's incredibly thought-provoking. I'm already feeling my perspective shift a little.
That's awesome.
How about you? Have any of these ideas particularly resonated with you?
What really stands out to me is this recurring theme of empowerment.
Right?
It's not about being victims of our circumstances,
Yeah.
but conscious creators of our own reality. And that's a message that holds so much potential for everyone.
I agree. And as we delve deeper into Ask and It Is Given, we'll explore practical steps and techniques for harnessing this creative power
For sure.
and really manifesting the life we truly desire. But for now, I think it's worth pausing and reflecting on this question.
Okay. If we truly believed we were the creators of our own reality, what would we start creating differently today?
That's a powerful question. And I think the answers we find within ourselves have the potential to transform not just our individual lives, but the world around us.
Absolutely.
Picking up on that idea of being a powerful creator, Chapter 4 actually gets into the practical side of manifesting desires.
Okay, so we've got this, exciting concept of creating our own reality.
Yeah.
But how do we make it actually happen? I mean, it kind of sounds like magic, doesn't it?
Well, they use this analogy of a journey to a specific destination,
Right.
like let's say San Diego.
All right, San Diego.
Even if you don't know the exact route, you can still start driving in the general direction.
Okay.
You trust that with every step, you're moving closer to your goal.
I see. So it's not about having all the answers up front,
Right.
but trusting the process and just taking those initial steps.
Exactly.
I can see how that applies to, manifesting desires.
But we still need, a starting point, don't we? Where do we even begin?
The book emphasizes aligning ourselves with source energy.
Okay, so we've talked about that before.
Yeah, that pure, positive energy that flows through us, whether we realize it or not.
Okay, so we're tapping into the source energy,
Right.
but how does that actually, translate into manifesting desires? What's the connection there?
That's where the law of attraction comes in.
Okay.
This idea that we attract what we focus on,
Mm-hmm.
and our thoughts and feelings, they act as a guide, showing us if we're on the right path.
So if we're dwelling on negativity or worry, we're basically like inviting more of that into our lives.
Exactly.
It's almost like we're putting in a request to the universe for more of what we don't want. That's it, which isn't what we want, obviously.
No, not at all. And Chapter 5 takes this further, introducing us to the idea that we're all vibrational beings living in a vibrational universe.
Whoa, okay.
Our thoughts and emotions have a frequency,
Okay.
and that frequency attracts similar vibrations.
So we're like walking, talking, tuning forks, constantly sending out and receiving these vibrational signals.
That's a great way to put it.
I'm starting to get how this all fits together.
Yeah.
But how do we, like, shift our frequency to attract what we do want? Especially when those pesky negative thoughts keep popping up.
Chapter 6 really gets into the nitty-gritty of the law of attraction.
Right.
And it all comes down to alignment.
Alignment.
Yeah, it's not enough to just wish for something.
Right.
You have to truly believe it's possible, even feel the emotions as if it's already happening.
So we're talking about cultivating a feeling of, like, already having what we want.
Exactly.
Even if it's not physically there yet.
Yep. It's about releasing the resistance, the I don't have it yet, and letting our natural well-being flow.
You know, thinking back, there have been so many times where I was so caught up in the how that I blocked the energy of it actually happening.
Absolutely.
It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
It doesn't work that way.
Not at all.
The book encourages us to shift our focus from what we lack to the possibilities.
Oh, okay.
Embrace the unknown and trust the universe will handle the details.
It's like that saying, let go and let God. Right.
Exactly.
Trusting in something bigger than ourselves, even if we don't totally understand how it works.
And that surrender is key because Chapter 7 pushes things even further, reminding us that we're standing on the leading edge of thought.
Okay, now you've lost me. What does standing on the leading edge of thought even mean?
It means that every single thought we have, we are literally creating our future with it. The universe responds to those thoughts, shaping itself around them.
So we're not just watching, we're actively participating in this creation process.
Exactly.
That's a pretty big concept to, like, wrap your head around.
It is. It really highlights the power we have.
And the responsibility, I imagine.
For sure. And the book reminds us that the universe is infinitely abundant.
Okay.
It can give us anything we can imagine.
That's both exciting and kind of intimidating, to be honest.
I get that.
But how do we, communicate those desires to the universe? It's not like we can just send it an email.
Right. Well, Chapter 8 breaks down this process.
Okay.
Describing us as like vibrational transmitters and receivers.
Okay.
We're constantly sending and receiving these signals based on our thoughts and feelings.
So it's like this ongoing conversation with the universe that we're having, whether we're aware of it or not.
Exactly.
And the things we focus on most, those become our beliefs, which then shape our reality.
That's how it works.
And the book says that even our deepest beliefs were once just fleeting thoughts, repeated over and over until they became, like, solid. So if we create limiting beliefs by repeating negative thoughts, we can create empowering beliefs by focusing on what we do want.
Exactly.
It's all about changing that internal dialogue.
It is. But let's be real. Staying positive all the time is hard.
Oh, I know it.
Life throws curveballs, doubts pop up, and sometimes it just feels easier to give in to negativity.
So how do we deal with that?
Well, that's where Chapter 9 comes in, exploring the value in our emotional reactions.
Okay.
It encourages us to view emotions not as good or bad,
Right.
but as indicators of what we're attracting.
So instead of judging ourselves for feeling, frustrated or discouraged, we can use those feelings as information.
Exactly. If we're feeling joyful and enthusiastic,
Okay.
it's a sign that we're in alignment with our desires.
But if we're feeling down or frustrated, it's a signal to, take a step back and reassess.
Exactly. It's like our emotions are a built-in compass showing us the way.
And we have to pay attention to those signals.
Yes.
And make conscious choices about where we want to go.
Absolutely. But how do we actually make those adjustments? How do we shift from negative to positive?
Yeah, that's the tricky part.
Well, Chapter 10 outlines 3 steps for manifesting anything we desire, and those steps can help us navigate those tricky emotions too.
Okay, I'm all ears.
The first step is to identify what we truly want,
Right.
recognizing that every subject has 2 sides, the wanted and the unwanted.
I see. So if we're focused on what we don't want, we're giving it more energy.
Right. We need to shift our attention to what we do want, even if it's not here yet.
Okay, that makes sense.
The second step is to keep that focus.
Okay.
Don't get caught up in the lack of it.
So it's not enough to just know what we want. We got to keep our attention on it.
Exactly. Cultivate that mindset of abundance. Trust that it's on its way.
It's like those vision boards people make with images and words representing their goals.
Keeping those desires front and center.
Exactly.
And the third step, this is often the hardest, is to just allow it to happen.
Allow it to happen.
Release the resistance, let go of control, and trust the universe.
That sounds a lot easier said than done.
It can be. It's about this delicate balance between intention and surrender.
Right.
Holding the vision clearly, but letting go of the how and when.
It's a lot to balance.
It is, and the book acknowledges that becoming a deliberate creator takes practice.
Okay.
It's a process of shifting our thought patterns and aligning our vibration with our desires.
It's a journey, not a destination, right?
Exactly, and there will be bumps along the way.
But I bet the rewards are worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine living a life where you feel empowered to create your reality, trusting the universe has your back.
Yes.
And experiencing this deep sense of well-being no matter what's going on around you.
That's the promise. Ask and it is given. Offers.
It's powerful stuff.
It is.
In chapters 11 and 12, they get into specific techniques and practices for, actually doing this, cultivating deliberate creation and dealing with the challenges.
Yeah, they get down to the nitty-gritty of applying these principles in our daily lives.
This is where it gets really interesting, don't you think? What are some of the key takeaways from these chapters?
One thing they emphasize is that it's not about controlling our thoughts,
Okay.
but more about, guiding them in a more intentional direction.
It's like we're the captain of our ship, choosing our course instead of being tossed around by the waves,
I like that analogy.
But what about those negative thoughts that just won't quit?
Well, that's where our emotional set point comes in. Chapter 12 reminds us that while we can't always control what others do around us,
Right.
we can control how we respond emotionally.
Okay, that's where I struggle sometimes.
Yeah.
How can we be responsible for our emotional state when so much is happening that's outside our control?
It's not about denying what's happening around us,
Okay.
but recognizing that our emotional responses are ultimately our own.
Right.
The book asks, whose truth is the true truth? Suggesting there are many perspectives on every situation, and we choose which one we align with.
So even in tough situations, we have a choice in how we react.
Exactly. We can choose anger and fear, or we can choose compassion and understanding.
Right.
It's like choosing a different lens to view the world through.
And as we practice choosing those more positive responses, we gradually raise our emotional set point.
Exactly.
This makes me think of that saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can choose how we relate to it.
I like that.
And that choice impacts our well-being so much.
It really does. And the book suggests that our general mood can be a good indicator of our emotional set point.
Okay.
If we're often feeling joyful and grateful, it's a good sign.
But if we're often anxious or discouraged, it might be a sign that our emotional set point needs some adjusting.
Exactly. It's like checking our emotional temperature.
I see.
And if we're not feeling great, it's time to make some changes.
So where do we start?
Chapter 13 encourages us to let our feelings be our guide.
Okay.
It describes a feeling of emptiness as a valuable signal,
Okay.
indicating that we've strayed from our true desires and need to realign.
It's like our inner compass is trying to get our attention.
Exactly.
But those whispers can be so subtle.
They can.
It's easy to miss them in the chaos of life.
That's why the book emphasizes a regular practice of introspection,
Okay.
taking time to connect with ourselves and really listen to our inner guidance.
Makes sense.
Practices like meditation, journaling, being in nature, these can help quiet the mind and make those inner whispers louder.
It's interesting how these ancient practices are becoming more relevant in our modern world.
It's true. As life gets busier, it's even more important to create that space for stillness.
Otherwise, we just get swept away by everything going on around us.
Exactly. And that's what these practices do. They help us step out of that current and become more aware of ourselves and make conscious choices about our direction.
It's empowering to realize that we're not just victims of our circumstances, but that we can actually create our own reality.
It is.
But it's also a big responsibility, isn't it?
It is.
If we're in charge of creating our experience, then we're also responsible for our choices and actions.
Absolutely. And that's where the book challenges us to step up, own our choices, and create a life that reflects what we truly believe in.
I'm sensing a shift in our conversation.
Oh, yeah.
We've gone from the mechanics of the law of attraction to, a deeper, more philosophical discussion.
I see that.
It's like we're moving from the how to the why.
Interesting.
Exploring the purpose behind our power to create.
I think that's natural. As we begin to understand the power we have,
Yeah.
we start to question our motives and values.
Right. It's like we're shifting from what can I get to what can I give.
It's a beautiful shift.
It's about recognizing that our power goes beyond just ourselves.
It impacts the world around us.
And that's where it gets really interesting.
It does.
Because if we can all tap into this creative power, imagine the collective impact.
It's amazing to think about.
It's like we're all connected, and our choices and actions are all adding to this collective experience.
And as we become more aware of that,
Yeah.
we naturally start making choices that benefit everyone, not just ourselves.
It's like a ripple effect,
Exactly.
starting with the awareness of our own power.
That's the key.
This has really opened my mind to the possibilities.
Agreed.
And I want to explore how these teachings can be applied to my own life, but also to the world as a whole.
And that's where the real magic happens.
Yeah.
As we each step into our power as creators, we create a world that's more aligned with love, joy, abundance, and well-being.
That's a beautiful vision.
It is.
And it all starts with believing it's possible.
That's the first step.
It's incredible to think we can shape not just our own lives, but contribute to this like collective shift in consciousness. But let's be real, not everyone's going to be on board with all this, right?
Yeah.
What about the skeptics, the people who say it's all just, wishful thinking?
Well, Chapter 14 actually addresses that head on.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it acknowledges that the law of attraction, it kind of clashes with how we usually think about the world.
Right.
And it reminds us that a lot of new discoveries, they face resistance at first, even ridicule, before they eventually become accepted.
It's like, thinking back to those groundbreaking scientific discoveries throughout history.
Exactly.
People laughed at the idea of a round Earth.
Right.
Even the concept of germs was met with skepticism at first.
Yeah, it takes time for new ideas to catch on.
Especially when they challenge what we think we know.
For sure. But it's important to remember that our beliefs aren't set in stone.
Okay.
They're really just thoughts we've repeated so much that they've become like our default setting.
Okay.
And if we can create limiting beliefs, we can also create empowering ones.
So it's not about ignoring those negative beliefs or pushing them away,
Right.
but more about gently shifting our focus to more positive and empowering thoughts.
Exactly. It's like training a puppy.
Okay.
You got to be patient, persistent, and use positive reinforcement.
I like that analogy. And chapter 15, that's where they talk about the power of affirmations, right?
Yes. Affirmations are basically positive statements that we repeat to ourselves to strengthen those desired beliefs.
I've got to admit, I've always been a little skeptical of affirmations.
Yeah.
It just feels a little too simple.
I get that.
Like, just saying the words doesn't really create change, does it?
Well, the book agrees that affirmations alone aren't magic.
Right.
They work best when we really want to change and are willing to align our thoughts and actions with them.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. It's about embodying the change we want to see.
Not just in ourselves, but in the world.
Exactly.
The book also reminds us that real change, it takes time.
It does.
It's not a quick fix.
No quick fixes here.
It's a journey.
It's a process of self-discovery and transformation.
And we got to be patient with ourselves along the way.
For sure. Celebrate the small victories.
Because there will be roadblocks and resistance, right?
Absolutely. But chapter 16, that's where they give us advice on handling those tough moments.
Okay, what kind of advice?
They remind us that contrast is a natural part of creation.
What do they mean by contrast?
It means understanding that everything exists in relation to its opposite.
Okay.
We can't fully appreciate joy if we've never known sadness
I see.
or abundance without experiencing lack.
It's those contrasts that help us figure out what we really want.
Exactly. And what we're willing to do to get it.
So those tough times, those moments of contrast,
Yeah.
they're actually opportunities for us to grow.
They are. It's a shift in perspective. Instead of seeing challenges as setbacks, we can see them as stepping stones.
I like that. So it's about embracing those contrasting experiences,
Yes.
learning from them, and letting them shape us into, the creators we're meant to be.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes that the journey itself matters just as much as the destination.
That's a good reminder. It's like that saying, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans.
Exactly.
It's about letting go of the need to control every little thing and being open to surprises.
But it's not about being passive.
Right. It's about finding that balance.
Yes.
Between intention and surrender. Action and allowing.
And chapter 17, it really sums up that balance beautifully, reminding us that we are powerful creators, but we're also a part of something much bigger.
Okay.
It encourages us to trust the universe, to let go, and believe that we're always guided and supported.
There's something really calming about that message.
It is. It reminds us we're not alone.
We have this whole support system, both seen and unseen.
And as we learn to trust and surrender, we connect more deeply with ourselves and the world around us.
We start to see how everything's connected.
And realize we're all part of something bigger than ourselves.
This conversation has been quite a journey.
It has.
We've explored so much.
From channeling to the law of attraction to the deeper meaning behind it all.
It's like we've peeled back the layers and discovered this deeper truth.
And the best part is, this journey of self-discovery and creation, it never really ends.
That's true.
There's always more to learn and explore and create.
It's been great diving into Ask and It Is Given with you.
Likewise.
I feel like my perspective has shifted.
That's great.
And I'm leaving with this renewed sense of hope and possibility.
And remember, the power to create the life you want, it's within you. The universe is on your side, just waiting for you to step into your role as a creator.
It's a powerful reminder.
So go out there and create a life filled with joy and abundance.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Ask and It Is Given. We hope you've been inspired to learn more about these ideas and discover the amazing power you have within. And until next time, remember, you are a powerful creator.